All right, all right. I'm getting myself together here. It's taking me a minute or two. Just jump back from being out and about. I'm here in the garage, and I see that Marcy's over there. I'm going to see if it works. Marcy.
Hey.
I hear your voice. I see your face.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. This is exciting.
This is very exciting.
Very exciting. I'm going to try to... We don't have quite a good place to do this yet, so I end up doing it in my either outside on the porch or in the garage.
Oh.
I'm in like one of those like folding beach chairs. It's like it's not the most comfortable place to sit.
Well, you look clear. I, for some reason, look like I have gauze. There's some kind of gauze like coating.
You are.
I don't understand that, but
This is a apocalyptic text. We're gonna remove the veil at some point. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So I bet. All right, we have a.
There's Kaylee.
Kaylee Sweeney,
classmate. Yes. Absolutely.
All right.
Hello, Kaylee.
Shout out to the classmates.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. We are going to. I'm just gonna find the text real quick. It's pretty short, so I'll just read it real quick and then we'll jump in.
Sure.
Okay. Oh boy. All right. I don't know if I can. I'll see if I'm trying to minimize us even more.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a little better. All right. From there, he set out and went away into the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. Anyway, we'll come back to that. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went and found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. I don't know why that weird drag to move is still there, but we won't get too worried about that. Oh boy. I tell you, technical difficulties are coming.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties are coming hard and fast today for some reason. I see that Mark said hello in the chat. That usually means that somehow I didn't get him. I didn't get him the link. I'm going to go and send that to him.
Sure.
Any first impressions you want to give while I'm trying to do things in the background?
Yeah. Well, I think this a little unsettling. Jesus's response, maybe less than what we would have maybe thought we would hear from him.
Right.
I think I read one writer said that he was caught with his compassion down.
Right. No doubt.
So yeah, and Kaylee's saying definitely one of the more troubling texts. I think it paints an unflattering portrait of Jesus. So,
right.
And so what do we make of that? And, is really a question too. So. Yeah.
No, it gets there's my. Yeah. So it does get right into some. Yeah, so it does. Mark's volume's on. You'll get it together.
Ah,
All right.
Cheryl.
Hello,
Hey, Mark, I think we're still echoing in the background on your.
yeah. I cut off the Facebook. It should be okay now.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Hi, Marcy.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Decided to join you today.
Yeah, you guys, you joined. We got a monster tonight.
Watching from the grandstand, I thought I'd kind of come on the field today. So
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, watching from the grandstand, I thought I'd come out on the field today.
Okay.
Right.
Getting
that's
my
good.
football analogies ready.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, here we go. That time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Yeah. So, hey, Cheryl. Let's see.
Yeah.
Cheryl. Yeah. Nice to see. Yeah. Good to see folks out. Yeah. So like you were saying, this is definitely one of those like, wow.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, even in Mark and other places, Jesus gets angry and stuff like that, but we always kind of like, we understand it because he's dealing with like, religiously intolerant people that make us angry too.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, but in this one, it's like, wait. Yeah. It seems like it comes out of left.
I was thinking about, there's this celebrity magazine that talks about that always does this feature each month that says, oh, celebrities, they're just like us. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, they're not really just like us. And then you see Jesus kind of caught, oh, I'm tired, I'm cranky, and offers the not so helpful retort to the woman, and we think to ourselves, oh, Jesus is just like us.
Yeah.
He was not having a good day. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because I saw somewhere, I'm trying to think of where I read it, but they were talking about how in Mark it's interesting because the multiple healing kind of the healing report kind of reports that come I think in like 3 and just maybe they just happened in the end of 6, kind of like, and he healed many people or something that those kind of slow down and you get these individual healings here and even in the next one with the man he heals, that he has to do like the extra manipulation stuff.
Right.
And there's even like a suggestion that like Jesus is actually getting like tired, like physically drained of healing, like,
oh, wow.
And so like, especially as he turns to go to Jerusalem, that healing is actually taking a toll, and that he goes over to Gentile territory to try to catch a break, and he's trying to hide out to actually, self-care, but self-care. So I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I read that and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was an interesting take, but yeah.
Wow, it's interesting. That he would go to the enemy to get a break, not the enemy, but those who are viewed as being the enemy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because he's had such a hard time just in this last little passage with the with the so-called friendly folks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, what's that say about the friendly folks?
Yeah. Well, that's what Cheryl just says. That Cheryl just said, I'll show it. It says, Crank is right in verse 18, just before he asked the crowd if they are really so dull. Yeah, man. Well, actually, I think that was maybe even directed directly to the disciples. I don't remember exactly. But so both crowd and the disciples both, he told them that they, having some issues. But so this, and it's interesting because you have, I think maybe there's 3 categories of where this anger or impoliteness comes from. So you have either some version of chauvinism, like male chauvinism, or you have some version of nationalistic tendencies, maybe xenophobia at the worst side. And then you have perhaps, as Marcy, you were just saying this morning, I was reading as well about maybe there's also a class antagonism here, where you have, well, and then you have then of course, we don't want to, dismiss the intersectionality of all three of those things coming together. And
have you run across any possible suggestions that maybe this is a redaction?
Some people, people say, what I've read in that regard. Sorry, did you want to?
No, go ahead.
I'm not. We brought Marcy on to, so that we wouldn't play Jesus in this text.
All right now.
I was just going to say that from what I've read, the only thing that they say that Mark added to this is like a couple words, like to the children first, to that first language, proton, I think the Greek, and then maybe a couple other things. So, I think a lot of people think this is original, because why would you leave this in there?
Right.
This would be the first thing on the cutting room floor if someone was,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just jump in. I think, we hear Jesus referred to often as this boundary breaking Messiah, boundary breaking, smashing divisions. And of course, we just had that discourse previously. But here, his first argument is that he recognizes that he feels strongly that his mission at this moment does have a boundary.
Right.
So I think he was feeling like, this is who I've come to first. And obviously he maybe could have said it in a better way, and not necessarily use that derogatory language. I read somewhere that someone thought, well, he wasn't calling her like a dog in the sense of these stray dogs in the street, but more like puppies that people have in their house.
No, I don't.
No, it's an insult to be referred to as a dog. And I think we know when you're talking about a female, we know modern language, which is obviously not. Right. So, but I guess he was feeling at that moment that, you're right. I would agree, probably just physically, emotionally worn out, trying to get away, to have that self-care moment. And here comes, he's going into this house, and here comes someone again seeking from him, and be feeling like he doesn't have a whole lot to give. But, and by the way, actually, I'm here not for you just yet, but I'm here for the Jewish family. So,
I was trying to find. I found there was an interesting quote about the. There was a Jewish commentator that was saying that if they would have found, if some of the Christian theologians would have found that quote from a Jewish teacher, they'd be harping on that for
absolutely
for generations, and Jesus gets a pass, for saying that, because it certainly can't be looked at as anything but supremely insulting.
And we also got to look at the desperation of this woman. She left her kid at the house. So, she left her sick kid out the house. So she's going out and taking a big chance, to, first of all, encounter this person of the opposite culture, maybe face the ridicule of her community. And so she's taking a big chance, and to be met with this insult that Jesus knew that was an insult in that culture to call it that.
Right.
So,
yeah. No doubt. So I think the consensus should rest on the fact that Jesus is being at least insensitive, if not just downright mean. And so then I guess the interesting question is, what do we think? What do we think was the reason for it? And to get it, to think about. I mean, obviously, simple answers that have been thrown out.
Yeah.
Obviously, just the male-female dynamic in this culture would be one thing, but I think from what we've seen of women busting in on Jesus at meals, that this is not his typical response.
Yeah.
To that sort of thing.
I was looking at this article by this Roman Catholic writer, and she has interesting comments. She says that within the region, dog was a common slur used in referring to Gentile people. He says, at a shallow level, this could be read as simply as an insulting rebuke. However, in doing so, the full allegorical implications put forth by Mark, along with his deeper theological argument, would be ignored. At the root of the statement is salvation theology. Jesus argues that his mission is first and foremost to the children of God, the Jews. That is not fair to say that is what is intended for them is not given to the Gentiles. Only that they have to be fed first and then for the Gentiles. And he goes on to say that there's the verb used in the feeding of the 5,000 is the same verb.
Right.
Fed and satisfied. So fed and satisfied. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so
it's like a bridge.
Right.
The argument is like this is like a bridge moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this is what's interesting to me is that, so from what Mark is setting out, and so I've always read this text, and I've even preached on this text as being a moment where this woman changes Jesus's mind.
Right.
And I've even preached that in places where people were not necessarily pleased that I was saying that Jesus, mind got changed, because Jesus is divine and can read minds and doesn't need to have his mind changed, But I don't know. Now I'm wondering, because after taking so much time walking through this, walking slowly through this text up to this point, I mean, you have Jesus going to the other side, healing the demoniac. You have, the reading that kind of came out of a few different places with the storm at the sea being like a metaphor for the disciples' hesitation of going to the other side, like their kind of nationalism, whatever, like throwing up, inhibitions for them. And you have Jesus going there, healing those folks. You have kind of this, then you have this last chapter of Jesus breaking down, like you said, all these walls that would inhibit us from, basically saying that the reason he can't be upset that it's a Gentile person or a Greek person coming to be at table with him, because he just said that was okay. He can be upset by it. He just would be hypocritical and
exactly.
A complete U-turn of what was just said.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, I'm not discounting that as a possibility, but it doesn't seem, it seems less likely. So I guess all of that's leading up to me. What I'm wondering about, and I don't mean to say this to let Jesus off the hook at all, but I'm wondering if this is a test for the disciples.
Huh.
Is he saying because what they should have learned coming out of all that just happened up to this point, what they should have learned, even though he admits that they're dense at the end, what they should have learned is that they should step in whenever he says these things. Mm-hmm. They should be offering her healing as soon as she speaks up. You know, they should already know that their task is to offer healing, to eat with, you know, whoever wants to eat with them and to eat whatever is offered on the table. You know, I mean, they should already know these things, you know, and it's kind of like putting their words in his mouth, you know, thinking what they would be thinking and saying them out loud and looking around to see if anyone is gonna, you know, if anyone's gonna step up. You know what I mean? Say, no, this is not, you know, I mean,
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because, you know, this story, of course, is mirrored in Matthew under a Canaanite woman, and it has a little more detail. And in the Matthew version, the disciples are saying to him, look, she's yelling, which is different from Mark in that he seems to be in this house kind of private. When Matthew, he's out in public and she's yelling. And so there's like, listen, stop her from yelling. So clearly in the Matthew version, they're not stepping up. So I, you know, just.
But it's interesting though, because, you know, in some other stories like that, when people do that, the disciples silence them or try to get them to shut up. You know, so I mean, it is interesting that they would, you know, in a way, like they're doing the right thing by drawing attention to her, you know, I mean, because sometimes they're like, you know, get off to the, you know, because I think I was trying to think of Bartimaeus, what the disciples, I can't remember what they do in that story, but I think they kind of like are like, tell him to shut up. You know what I mean? Like you know, but you know,
and they
but I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably not something. I don't know. It's a theory that I'm having a hard time just because before I always kind of was like hadn't read closely enough to kind of get how Jesus was already going to the Gentiles some, and like that connection and that boundary breaking was already happening to some degree. You know, I hadn't really heard that before. So this story always kind of seemed like a real pivot point. And I think it definitely still is a major pivot point, but I don't know. It just seems to me like, I don't know, maybe it's another. If I have to preach this 7 or 8 more times, it's a one version that it's a one theory that I might work with, you know.
Well, following your line of reasoning, then disciples dropped the ball, and this woman, it just shows the courageousness of this woman, because what this article I was reading says that this changes the focus of the mission at this point. At this point, it's not just about the community that I know, but it's the community that's the outsiders also in focus. So this is a major focal shift in the ministry of Jesus. And it's because of her that she had the courage.
And a nod to you, Mark, in your womanist theology. I read today that it was the womanist idea of it was her sass that healed her daughter. In Matthew, he says faith. Your faith is strong, but in Mark, he just says what you said has granted your wish for your daughter. And so, in womanist circles, we would say it was her sass that was her, that actually did it. You know.
I think it's logos too. It's
logos,
your
exactly.
Word, your
word, right.
Word.
Absolutely.
Your word, Your words, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, that's a good. No, I mean, I think that's,
and even going deeper, because sometimes that word logos can be power or presence. Her presence.
yeah.
Her presence. Herself changed the whole changed Jesus.
Right.
Changed Jesus. Changed the whole focus.
Yeah.
So this so so this is where it gets interesting when we start talking about what is her class position?
Right.
Where does she come from? Because it's one thing to say that someone who if you focus solely on the woman angle, then you would say that in general in this society she would be a lower on the status rung or whatever in the traditional system. And so that would mean that she was really stepping it up to say something to him.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if as some people argue, if she is a Greek speaking, well-educated, somewhat financially secure woman from a town that is the urban center for Jesus's people, then
and maybe economically took advantage of the Jewish rural folks, then that paints a very different picture.
Right.
And that maybe Jesus's response was a response to what he perceived as ongoing kind of oppression, and saying to her, listen, no, those that are being dominated by your group go first. And so then does that make it any different? Do we see it? Do we see it in a different light?
Well, I think that also changes the dynamic of her willingness to respond. Like if she comes from that, if she comes from this, if she would normally see Jesus on the street and be like, you need to get out of my way. You know what I mean? That's a different dynamic. I mean, now before she comes back with her, her sassy reply, she does say, Lord, I read somewhere that this is the only time that someone in the story refers to Jesus as Lord. So, I mean, that's fairly significant that happens there. But I think there's so many interesting dynamics depending on how you read this woman, because someone was saying that what Jesus says to her, and again, this is what's interesting about thinking about if he's playing with the disciples in this moment, because in a way, because there's been all this contention about bread,
right?
From the feeding to the ship. He says that they didn't understand about the bread. That's in there, and then like the whole argument with the clean and unclean is about bread. So it's like here comes this bread thing again, and economically or socioeconomically in that location, it would have been we are growing the food, we are making the bread, and these people are eating it. Like that would have been the disciples' understanding of the people from this region. The people from Tyre were the people who were basically eating the bread that we were growing, and the food that we were making, it was going to them to eat, and we were getting the crumbs. We were, it was the kind of the opposite situation of what gets played out. And so, so they would have heard Jesus. They would have kind of been like, right on, tell it to her, I mean, and so in a way it's like either he's really saying it to her, which is, I think, quite possible too, or he's also like picking just the right thing to really challenge all the assumptions that they have and trying to see what they'll do.
Yeah.
Because I think that this I think that that's another thread that's been going through, is Jesus trying to give his ministry over to the disciples, trying to get them to take on, slowly, but surely to take on, as Dr. Blunt would say, to get them to go preach, to get them to go heal, that this has got to be handed on, and so I don't know. But either way, I think that the socioeconomic, that angle, and there's quite a bit of evidence for it, when I was looking through this, because when I paused in the NRSV translation, because they say Gentile, and in the Greek it says Greek, not ethne, that's normally translated Gentile. It says Greek, so people think, that maybe she was a Greek speaker, or maybe that it's just a way to use a singular version of Gentile. Either way, and then also when they talk about the daughter, right? They say that she was on, like, the word they use for the bed.
Exactly.
Is actually like a real piece of furniture. Like instead of the mat. The other people have
on the floor. No, she's got, Broyhill, Thomasville, wood furniture, which means she might be a little more fluent.
She's got the real furniture. And I think as well that she, I think her use of when she uses the word table, she uses the word like for an actual, an actual table, like a furniture style table that would be some in the upper classes. So I think there's little bits and pieces here that suggest that that's her location,
right?
Which make the story interesting. And I wonder from your, for me, this is like I'm confessing this on a live thing, but like for me, like that totally kind of like takes away a lot of my sympathy for her. I mean, I don't know, like I'm kind of like, oh well, if that's where she's from, like, get at her,
I mean, because initially, me too. I mean, initially, I'm like, "Whoa, get it, girl!" Truth to power.
How could he say that to you? Like how dare
like,
he?
Get it, girl. She came back on you, man. And then when I hear that piece about, then I'm with you, Dan. I'm like, hey, maybe he's trying to set you straight. And I
can't run away from her desperation.
No doubt.
Even if she is, fairly well off, she's a desperate woman because she's got a sick child. Right. She's a desperate mother.
And the point is made that no matter what your situation, a mother in desperation is going to do whatever she needs to do, because there's also discussion about, in terms of the gender equity piece, that she really kind of accepts him calling her dog and saying, and so and people praise her for her willingness to be submissive in that respect and saying, but again, if you're desperate, you're going to do whatever you have to.
What you got to do.
Save your child. And if it means accepting that, okay, I'm a dog, but listen, even dogs get the crumbs.
Yeah.
You're still able to do this. So Mark, your point is well taken. She's still her posture is still one of, I got to do what I need to do to save my daughter.
Right.
So
well, and her level of desperation, I mean, it only increases what her desperation must be, if she comes from that social location going to Jesus, because that means that she had she had available to her the healthcare of the day in the city, and so she had access to that, but that was not working for her. She had, she needed something, she was desperate because she had tried. other things,
Yeah.
you know.
Much like the woman with the hemorrhaging as well.
Yeah.
It tried everything and realized that Jesus was the answer.
Right.
And so she's willing to take crumbs. That's her kind of metaphor for grabbing the hem of the garment. She's doing the same thing in her way.
Yeah.
Well, what does it say about, we looked this hermeneutically, that the outsider is the one that challenges, the insiders don't.
Mm-hmm.
So as a church,
right,
you know, that we get, the outsiders are the one that are bringing it. They're bringing the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're the ones in the inside, we should be the one that we should looking at changing perspectives and changing folks' mind and changing their viewpoints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, under one interpretation, insider to the point of, you know, God themselves, right? Not you know, not accepting the challenge, you know, not accepting the challenge. If you know, if you read Jesus one way, you know, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a real interesting. It's an interesting story, and I think the other thing that's interesting about that, like the turn there, someone was saying that because I did all this, you know, this research before about these table gatherings and banquets at this time, and so in some Gentile and Greek and Roman settings, at the end of the meal, you know, people would throw stuff out to the dogs. You know, they would you'd be reclining around a room, and especially in Roman culture, you know, they had pets. I mean, you know, like dogs could be like a pet. You know, like you would have, you know, but in Jewish culture that was not a thing at the time. Like dogs were thought of as like the roaming, you know, scary dogs, you know, who are just in the way, spreading disease and all this stuff. So part of what the woman does is that she takes this insult that Jesus throws at her, and then turns it around and actually like takes his cultural assumption about dogs and makes it about dogs that the children would give food to. You know what I mean? Because they're a part of the family.
They're part of the family, right?
You know, because you know they're part of they're welcome in the household. You know, you know, as part of they're the cleanup crew, basically. You know, like they're like, you know, like they're cleaning up the things that you don't have to clean up later by picking up. And they even say that like the way that the word that's used for throwing the crumbs to the dogs is almost like a voluntary thing. You know, like you're wanting to give, you know, you're wanting to give the crumbs to the dog. So like the woman not only changes not only accepts the metaphor and you know, and the insult in a way, but also like flips it around to make it to make the term like to include her in the family.
Welcoming, right?
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like so Jesus makes it a term about you know, being so far on the outside that you're
exclusion,
you know,
in
some way, you know, even equated with like idolaters and stuff like that. You do, you know, like you wouldn't want to eat with a dog, right? You even around in the room. But then she switches it to say, like, actually, you know, if you call me that, like that's great, because you know, like my daughter, when she's healthy, is going to be, you know, given bits of food to the dog. The dog is a part of the family. You know, you know what I mean? You know, so it's kind of a really, I mean, it is fascinating because really, no, you can't. One thing you can't get around in the text is that the woman steals the show.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So like, I mean, she does all of the normal, you know, verbal jujitsu stuff that Jesus does to everybody else. She does it to.
She does it to him.
She does it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark acknowledges it. I think someone was saying that when it says the way he introduces what she says. I got all these. I got all these pages here. I don't know what.
Yeah.
The way that she introduces what he says, the way he introduces what she says, is the way that Mark normally introduces Jesus' statements. About whenever Jesus is about to say something important to the people, the way that the words used. Goodness gracious. If you could see the mess I've got over here. Let me find the maybe if I find the I'm gonna find the text again.
But she answered him? Is that the line?
Yeah, and yeah, like what, but where it says, but she answered him, like the way I think in the actual Greek,
Okay.
like it's she answered and said. Like that phrasing that that they use is like he answered and said to them, and then like in a few places that is where that's the phrasing that Jesus is used to like really lay out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
like this is what you should be thinking right now. And so even Mark gives her this prominent place in the way that it's talked about. Yeah. But I did. I'm glad you mentioned that. You mentioned Mark. You mentioned that the same verb is used in that part of in the feeding of the 5,000 about being filled and to satisfaction or being filled. And then that's what Jesus says that that the children must be fed to satisfaction. It must be filled and satisfied before, because it's interesting because right. I mean, the one logical point of that is that they just were. Like they just were, like, yes, we just said in the text that this group of children of God were fed to satisfaction. In fact, there was all this leftover.
There was leftover, right? That's what I was thinking about. That
there was more than crumbs.
There was
left
more
over.
than enough, right? There was leftover for all. So absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean I guess I don't know. It's interesting because that's why I don't know. I mean, that's why it's hard to imagine that Jesus is missing the point as well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That continues to be a running theme for me is that how did Jesus miss that mark? And then so I read today that says, perhaps you will say, can we still believe in such a Jesus who is not perfect, a Jesus who is put to shame by a foreign woman toward whom he has behaved inhumanly? And then she says, I think that this is the only Jesus whom we can trust. We can only trust a Jesus who allows a woman to draw him out of his prejudices. Only in such a Jesus do we recognize a human face.
Right.
I guess when you think about the whole concept of process theology, even God evolves. Right. So this is like a sense a process that even Jesus evolved. So that's even more powerful. That even God continues to develop and evolve. Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, when I preached about Jesus changing his mind on that, I mean, that's why, I mean, I think like process theology wise, I'm totally comfortable with that idea. And I think that I think that's something we should be accepting, accepting of in general. I just struggle like narratively in what Mark is doing after all these other things that there's not.
In this text, you think about what your whole point, Darren, about him trying to get the disciples to grow. I'm thinking about our whole Christian, how we do Christian education in the church. That are we employing educational methods that really push our folk to change?
Mm-hmm.
Do we push our folk to rethink, to think about what the things they conceptualize and think, can this be viewed another way?
Right.
You know, how are we doing our education in the church? Are we just trying to get those to regurgitate? Are we pushing folk to transform?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that this text in a way is very important, pedagogically to say, like Jesus is listening
Right.
to this person.
Yeah.
And even to the point of admitting that he doesn't think he needs to listen to her. You know what I mean? Like he knows what he's supposed to be doing.
He's be doing right.
You know what I mean? Like there's
His
no
mission is clear. His mission
Right.
is clear.
Right. In fact, I mean, and to go on Jesus' side a little bit, I mean, he's got to go and, confront the religious power and authority of his day, be, beaten and crucified,
right.
which he realizes is the only logical conclusion to what he's about to do.
Yeah.
And so, before he does that, he would like to slip away to some little place and be left alone, so that he can save, humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. But in spite of all of that, he listens, and actually comes out of it with going on a whole healing tour and preaching tour in that region.
Exactly.
Which, in one way, this was even more empowering for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, you could say that in a way. I mean, this is interesting to think about. I mean, maybe you could combine all the things that I've been thinking in a way, to say that part of what he realizes here is that there is potential for what he's saying and what he's doing and what his purpose is to move beyond the 12, to move beyond the symbolic representation of the children of Israel.
Right.
Not that he's giving up on them as obviously there's still that message there, but this moment says to him that his fulfilling of his mission has potential even outside of these dim-witted fools.
Right. She gets it because she got it. Right?
Yeah. She got it. Yeah.
So
She got
others like her, others like her can get it and spread it.
Right.
She got it. So wow.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
the legion filled dude and this rich woman who doesn't need anything, besides this healing, if they can get it, maybe somehow all this, because you could see that Jesus is concerned, Jesus's willingness to, because obviously there's all these echoes of Elijah, right? Of going to the Gentiles and doing a smattering of healings here and there and that sort of thing, but still remaining focused, because you recognize that even in redeeming the people of Israel, that you are creating people who are a light to the nations, and that eventually the whole vision is that everyone will stream to whatever, and recognize the glory of God. Yeah. So you're not closed off to that, even though you see a two-step process.
Right.
But in this moment, there's a way that Jesus maybe sees that there's that those steps are more overlapping than they are, a straight
Mm-hmm.
it has to go here and then go here, you know. Yeah, I don't know. It's quite fascinating, but yeah. Well, so what, I will say this. I want to say this. I found this really fascinating, and Frances mentions this in her in her book, "Back to the Well" or whatever it is. But so in the Gospel in Solentiname, which
what's the name of the book?
Back to the Well.
Move it over a little
Women's
bit.
Encounter.
Put it right in front of your face.
In the Gospel. Oh, sorry. Wait.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Would you recommend that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's
okay.
Good. And it goes into different vignettes of Jesus encountering.
Email me that title, Darren.
What's that?
Email me that. That's something else I have to add to the list.
Yeah.
Just yeah. But she mentioned this in here, but because she's the one actually that breaks down the three different things, I think, really well at the end of that chapter. The economic idea, the male female, gender, or Greek. I mean, a Gentile Jew.
Right. But in the humanity piece.
Right. But so Gospel in Solentiname, Ernesto Cardenal, he reads this it's like a bunch of peasants gathered around reading the different stories. And this is the Matthew version, but he reads it to them. And then, one person says he behaved very badly. And then someone else says he was too burned up. And then another person says, it seems to me that when the woman made that plea to Jesus, he didn't like it. He rejected it. Why? Who knows? And then, so that's 1, 2, 3. The fourth person says, she must have been a rich old woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just straight up, I don't know. It's interesting from a different perspective, like how you,
exactly,
like seeing that must be what it was. And then the next person says, she must have been an oppressor. The children must have been the children of Israel, the oppressed, and she probably belonged to the oppressors, which is why he calls them dogs. And it just goes on and on. I just thought it was fascinating that within like 4 or 5 comments, without anything, that the folks around that circle
picked that up immediately.
Hey,
yeah,
I think I know what's going on here. When you come from that, when you come from a background that has, such a sharp class distinctions, I think you might see that more clearly.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. Because I was trying to think about. I was at this rally for down in Kenosha. It was the anniversary of Jacob Blake getting shot.
Oh wow! Yeah. Okay.
And Umar Johnson was there. Dr. Umar Johnson. Have you guys ever heard? Ever heard of Dr. Umar Johnson?
No.
I always feel bad about bringing this up because then you might have to go down this rabbit hole. But he's like he's like a trained child psychologist, right? But he's out of Philadelphia, but he's kind of like a black nationalist guy, kind of in the Garvey, Frederick Douglass kind of strain.
Okay.
But I was thinking, I was there Saturday, I think, right, and listening to him speak, and I've seen him before on some different things, but I was thinking about him, and I was thinking about that scene, from the Malcolm X autobiography, where the white woman comes up and says, what can we do, and what can we do as white people to help, and he's like, nothing. To me, like thinking about this story as this woman as coming from this place of privilege and kind of being the urban elite, looking at the rural peasant and saying, like in the traditional, like in that way, like I was thinking a lot about that dynamic of wealthy, privileged white people going in and asking, Black people, what do we need to do to make, what do we need to do to make things better? You know what I mean? Like, like how, what do we need? What do we, I mean, and then like, that sometimes the natural reaction to that is what would you say?
Decenter yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I'm saying that like you might sympathize with Jesus more.
Yeah.
Recognizing how annoying that can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so I was thinking about that because the Dr. Umar Johnson guy is definitely not, he would not, I wouldn't have gone up to him and been like, hey, what should I do? Like, I don't know, go sort yourself out, man. I don't have time for you. But yeah, I don't know. That was the parallel that was coming to my mind. Is that because I mean, some people. I mean, some people, white people from privilege are actually recognize the fact that in order for things to heal overall, for our children to be in a place of wholeness and healing, this, the situation that we're in must be changed and transformed. Right. Like, even if I keep my kids isolated and never ask them to challenge any of this, like the people that they are going to become will not be whole, healed people. You know what I mean? Like if they can't embrace everyone, if they can't see, the humanity in everyone else, I
was thinking about over the past 4 years, we've had a past 4 years of isolation. We had a president that pushed forward for isolationist policy that is all about us. And we had for the most part, I would say most of the evangelical church went along with it. Mm-hmm. So they were like stuck. Everybody was stuck in their lane. Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about tonight about shifting that whole perspective. And what does it take to keep that movement going, to get people to shift their perspective? And that's why I go back to the whole educational ministry of are we doing enough to challenge folks, to challenge their perspective, challenge their theology, challenge their sociology, challenge everything? Are we really doing enough?
Right.
To challenge folks.
Yeah. These are good questions. Yeah. I mean, obviously the place, it's hard because in one sense, this story, it's hard because if you reading just strictly along class lines without putting any of the characters in their divine, their scale on the level of divine consciousness, it's kind of a troubling story in the sense of like, Jesus being imposed upon by this person, like the wealthy people imposing upon this oppressed person, to bring healing to their family, whenever there's so much suffering going on within their own community, partly caused by the people that, like, by this very woman who's coming to ask for this healing.
But there's desperation on both sides. We know in Jesus' community was oppressed. She was desperate. So there's this desperation on both sides. So in a sense that both sides have to sort of kind of be in touch with their own, realize their own pain, as well as that maybe she's got privilege, but both sides have pain.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the question then, the other question then is can we accept her submission if it is a purely class-based submission. You know what I mean? If what she's divesting herself of is her status, class-wise, and not her dignity as a human. You know what I mean? Like, because in the gender reading, what she's giving up is her dignity as a woman who deserves to be given the same equal dignity as anyone else.
She's doing what she needs to,
right?
For her daughter survive, and thinking about the whole womanist theology thing, that a lot of times it's about survival. I think it was a rap song. I think it admit it's about survival. Only the strong survive. It's about survival. It's about doing what we got to do to make it through this particular situation, this day, month, this year, whatever. So yeah, I feel you on that. But for her, it's about survival.
Right.
Or her kids survive.
Yeah, and I think from like the class point of view, like if she is the wealthy elite oppressor coming to Jesus, her submission then is actually a important kind of like move of solidarity in desperation.
Yeah.
Like she needs to recognize how needy she is.
She's still right.
Even and how they need each other, and how, it's all, I mean, like they need to recognize, like she needs to recognize that, so I don't know, so like that's where it's kind of a tricky thing, because like gender wise, it's just all twisted up, that Jesus makes her, take on this position, class wise, it seems important that she recognize her place in the oppressor oppressed, dichotomy of things,
and the interconnectedness, really.
Yeah.
Of the right.
Yeah.
Interconnected
in their desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, man, that's a lot to chew on there. Yeah. No, so good. Well, hey, this was fun.
This was fun. Yeah.
So I'm gonna do this online just to to be annoying. But you said you have to preach on the 12th, right, Marcy?
Yes.
Or the thing that you preach will be delivered to the people on the 12th.
Delivered on the 12th. Yes.
Now, are you doing the Mark text?
No, it is Deacon Sunday. So they have said to me that they would like me to preach on the theme of Renaissance. And Renaissance. So, and revival and renewal. And
where are you preaching at?
My church here. I live in Hampton, so Newport News, Carver Memorial Presbyterian Church. It's a historic African American Presbyterian church.
Wow!
Didn't they have I mean, I remember one of their ministers was quite impressive.
Yes, one of their ministers, Reverend Dr. Brian Blunt, who was my pastor in my formative years. So yes, he was one of our pastors.
Right. All of them are wonderful.
Well, they're all wonderful, but he's my favorite. He's my favorite. My favorite. Don't tell him I said that, but he is my favorite. So yeah, I mean, I would love to be preaching in Mark, but it's kind of a special occasion, and they want a special kind of message. So I'm trying to put that together.
What I was actually trying to do is I was trying to surreptitiously, say that we were going to do that Mark text on Labor Day, and try to get you to come back.
I would love
to be preaching on that text.
Now that you have this has been the most fun I have had, because I love I love the book. I love the book.
Yeah.
I love study, digging in, reading all these,
Right.
you know, a lot of the stuff I had never considered before, that she was
Yeah.
a woman of privilege. I had never considered
Yeah.
that. And what that dynamic, how that might
Yeah.
change the story.
Yeah.
Still in desperation, yeah, but you know, that is a different angle. As Frances talked, as Frances lifted in her book. So yeah, let me know what we're doing on Labor Day, and I'll be here.
Yeah. If you are you Mark, are you busy on, are you doing Labor Day stuff? Are you doing fun stuff on the weekend?
No. I'll be that's just a day off for me. So I'll be around.
Yeah.
We might have a captive, we won't call it a captive audience because it's probably just be the three of us. It says there's 4 people. It says there's 4 people.
This is so much fun.
I mean, I got classmates here. We got Cheryl here. I mean, this is great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But maybe because my plan, I'll tell you what the plan is. I think after one, after tonight, actually after tonight, after tonight I have a couple weeks off after. I don't preach on the 29th or on the 5th, but so I think I'm going to start doing on Monday night, doing the text that will be the Mark text for the coming Sunday.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So whatever the lectionary text is for that coming Sunday, I'll try to do that Mark text beforehand. And then maybe some people, maybe there's people who are getting ready to preach that might find something helpful.
So you're not preaching this Sunday?
I don't preach this Sunday or next Sunday. No.
Okay.
I still want to send you that sermon, Mark. So you can tell me. I'll have to send it to you too, Marcy. Find some time to listen to it. Yeah.
So you're saying that this coming Sunday you're doing
this coming Sunday? Well, no. So this coming Sunday,
not preaching.
Yeah, I'm not preaching, and also it's too late to do the Mark text for this coming Sunday.
Okay.
But on the what's the next Monday? What's next Monday?
So
Monday's the 30th. Monday's the 30th.
Right. So on the 30th, we'll talk about the Mark text that's scheduled for the 5th.
Okay.
What's that?
And then on the 6th, talk about the one that's for the 12th.
What's the text?
So
I think it's chapter 8, but I don't remember what part of chapter 8 it is.
I mean, okay, for the text for the text for the 6th, for the 5th. Wait, now I'm confused.
What's the text for the 5th?
This text for the 5th is Mark 7, 24 through 37, which we just talked about, right?
Really?
So we just did that.
So we might have to do part 2.
Yeah.
We might have to do part 2 of this because I think we all can sit with this economic angle and maybe come back with some more.
Do that.
Some more tidbits.
So what are we doing this coming Monday, the 30th?
Well, if the text for the 5th is this same text, right, and the next little bit too, right? I guess
the man.
Did it go?
The man.
Yeah, the man. Yeah, and the little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should stick with this. We should stick with this same text, and maybe we can think of some more. We can move. We didn't move as much as we normally do into kind of like, today's applications to this. So you think about that.
Think about hermeneutics next week.
Yeah, get into that. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a few more. I had a few more things here too from that I didn't get a chance to. Like I said, I have all the. I just have all these pages.
I know there's so much. I have all these. Yeah.
So I didn't even. And what I normally do is I read. I notate the book, and then I go back and write it all down in this. Put it all into this little journal that I have. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that this time. So that gives me a whole nother a whole nother chance to do that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. All right. So here's what I understand from that. And here's what will make me disappointed if it doesn't happen. What I gathered from that, from our recent conversation, is that Marcy and Mark, you both have agreed to come back next week to talk about this text again. And there was at least a soft commitment for the Labor Day Monday to talk about whatever text that's going to be, which is in chapter 8 somewhere.
Okay. So,
what do you guys think?
This week you want to focus a lot on hermeneutics next week. Application.
Yeah.
Hermeneutics.
Maybe look a little bit at the second part of that text.
Okay.
The second part of that, the other end of the chapter, the rest of the end of the chapter.
Okay.
And then then jump into how it might apply, especially thinking about okay, how does it apply if you look at the gender side of this, look at it a womanist lens, and and that sort of thing, and you see her, her moves there, but also what is it? How does it apply to us if we think about it from that socioeconomic lens of her coming from a place of privilege?
Okay.
That sounds great.
Okay.
And I'll figure out what the Monday text is, and what the Labor Day text is, the one that's going to be done on the 12th, because I have to actually preach on that one.
That's Mark 8. That's Mark 8, 20, Mark 8, 27 to 38.
All right.
Mark 8,
so
that help you, right? You probably want to know what that is.
No, that'll be good. Yeah.
Oh, Peter's declaration about Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So and I know that, but when we get into chapter 8, we got some more stuff from Dr. Blunt's book too. So it's been a while since I've been able to get back into that. Well, this is great. This is good news. This sends me off into my time off in the future with encouragement and joy. Even,
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah. I appreciate the invitation. I've enjoyed this so much.
We're gonna have to by the end of this, so we're gonna have to figure out how to part the veil over whatever's making you
some kind of lighting thing. I don't know.
Right.
Well, okay. The light was too much, probably.
Okay.
It looked it was like gauze.
Oh, you're right.
What is that? That's what it was. There we go.
Look at that. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that.
The lamp. It's the lamp that swings. And if it's too close, it gives you that.
Okay.
But
I see.
If I move it,
well, yeah.
Which is better because usually my lighting people say is like witness protection. At least you can see my face. Usually it's so dark and people are like, "Are you being held captive somewhere?" And I'm like, no. So this works.
Oh. Yeah. Well, what happens to me? What happens to me is because it's getting darker outside. It's been getting darker outside the whole time. My face, the darker it gets, the redder my face gets. I don't know if we probably can watch this video back and just see this slow shading. All right. Well, cool.
All right.
Yeah. Well, let's. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Good time. All right. Talk to y'all later.
All right. Talk to y'all later.